Colin McShane. We got market watcher Dennis Gartman on their musical choices as well. All right. One thing about Dennis Gartman, he doesn't get roped into this nonsense. But Colin and Dennis, very good to see both of you.
Wow.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, tell you, Mariano Rivera, by the way, had Metallica when he was standing at the game, and you've given us this.
Well, anything I can do to help.
And sadly, I'm getting close to your 90-year-old group, so that's very frightening.
Welcome. You are my base. Thank you very much. Dennis, in all seriousness, I'm wondering if people are getting fearful again. Well, it's just Turkey. So why are we selling off? So it begs the question, music notwithstanding, is it just Turkey? What's going on?
No, it's not just Turkey, Neil. This began a week and a half ago, and as my old friend Don Cox said, I think this is one of the wisest statements ever made about the emerging markets. Emerging markets are markets from which you cannot emerge in an emergency, and that's what ends up happening. We had problems with Argentina last week. We've had problems with China. We've got problems in the currency markets in Russia. This is not just Turkey. Turkey's taken the lead. It's obviously on the front pages. But this is more than just Turkey. This is a contagion that I fear could spread. We have a president who tweets indiscriminately and badly at times, and takes both friends and enemies and turns them into enemies, even worse. And I think that is causing a great concern. So this is more than just Turkey. This is a lot of things coming to fruition at one time, and I'm rather fearful.
What do you think, Colin?
Even today, we see that with the Chinese technology company Tencent, which seems to be one of the reasons that the market really is selling off as much as it is. I mean, I think there is kind of this interesting kind of fine line that we're walking here in the United States between, being a safe haven for people to invest in, and from just being part of the mix where we're down in a broad-based sell-off. And it does speak to kind of what Dennis is getting at here, the role that U.S. foreign policy, also monetary policy, but certainly U.S. foreign policy is playing in all of these things, whether it's Turkey, whether it's the European Union, Canada, Mexico, and probably most importantly China. As the United States tries to put pressure on all of these countries, we don't know where their breaking point is, or when their breaking point will come, or how much pain they, especially China, are willing to endure before they wave some sort of white flag. It could be next month, could be next week, could be next year, it could be much longer than that. We just don't know. And in between now and whenever then is, there's a lot of pain to go through, it would seem, or at least a lot of uncertainty.
That kind of echoes what you were just saying as well, Dennis, this notion that even though many are kind of use the standard numbers and percentages you hear, that when it comes to world GDP and every other number, I've heard that Turkey's under 1%, that when it comes to what we trade back and forth with them, it's barely 2%. So in the scheme of things, even those exposed to them, it's just a rounding error on a rounding error. So you argue that it's bigger than we're appreciating or being told. Why?
Well, because psychology plays so much a role in the world of investment. Yes, indeed, Turkey is a very, very small portion of global GDP, and it is indeed a rounding error. But add into that problems with Argentina, add into that problems with China, suddenly the rounding errors become unrounded. Suddenly the rounding errors become something rather large and disconcerting. So the first concern is always psychology, and that, I think, is what's changing here. The psychology changes as the markets, when you have a down day of 200, 250, 300 points, the investor psychology begins to change, and suddenly businessmen turn back and say, you know what, businesswomen turn back and say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to go with the expansionary programs that I thought about putting in place, and there becomes a snowballing effect. Let's hope the psychology changes, but it's psychology that moves first.
The other term, Neil, I put in, and it's kind of along the same lines of psychology, is ego. Because when you're dealing with these big political egos, and not only Donald Trump here in the United States, but Erdogan in Turkey, there would seem to be a way out of this mess if you were just thinking rationally about it. I mean, start with releasing this pastor, say, for example, but there's a lot of kind of ego that is kind of playing into the fact that the Turkey mess, for lack of a better term, could drag on a lot longer than it should. So, yeah, the numbers, the fundamentals might not say it, but, Dennis talks about psychology, and I would say that also the ego, the political egos, also play a big role in this.
And I do know this about Dennis. He's been a lot more right than a lot of folks we have on this air. I want to thank you both very, very much. Dennis, Connell, you added to the tragic opera theme here, so thank you, both of you.